Welcome to the overview of the Insights into Data's Pivot Grid feature. We will start on the results screen, because the pivot grid is available whenever a query is run. To launch the pivot grid, there is a button at the top of the screen called Show Pivot Grid. Below that is the Add Rec Counter. This checkbox will add a new column to the pivot grid that simply holds a 1 for each record. This allows it to act as a counter for some operations. We will show how this works in the following video. This is the pivot grid screen, where you can rearrange the data to look at it in different ways. Here we will drag the created counter field TA Rec node to the Data Items area. This will be the field that will be summed for each of the groupings in the pivot grid. The one cell in the grid is now selected, and automatically generates the pie chart shown in the bottom part of the screen. It is a little small, so we will enlarge it. Now we might want to break down this data by decade of the patient's age. To do this, all we have to do is drag the decade column down to the rows field area. This will quickly partition the data by decade. Now, once that breakdown has occurred, we might want to update our pie chart. To do this, simply select the records you want to chart in the pivot grid. Here you can see how quickly the pie chart is updated, and how easily it is to see the relative patient counts in the pie chart as compared to the grid itself. If you want other charts, besides the pie chart, it is very easy to do. Here we will change the chart to a bar chart. Note the wide variety of chart types available. Well, let's change back to the pie chart to complete the demo. The charts are very customizable, and can be printed and exported to a number of different formats. Here you can see these include PDF, HTML, Excel, RTF and various image formats. Everything you might need to generate charts for presentations. Okay, now that we have seen the basics, let's take a look at the power of the pivot grid. Let's further break down these decade breakdowns, by physician who the patient is seeing. To do this, we simply drag the doctor name column down to the columns field area. Watch how quickly the grid is broken down by decade, by doctor. It is very easy to create new pie charts, simply by selecting cells in the grid area. Now you can visualize the breakdowns by decade by doctor very easily. You can continue to break the data down in the pivot grid, by adding additional fields to the columns or rows. For example, let's add the sex of the patient to the columns to get breakdowns by doctor by sex of the patients. Another way of selecting cells to graph is to clicking on the various headers. Watch what happens when we click on the heads for Ronald McDonald, and how fast the charting area is updated. As the final part of the demo, we will further break down the decades by the condition type, allergy, immunization, medication, and problem categories, simply by dragging the column over to the row fields area. Insights into Data Pivot Grid gives you a powerful and easy to use tool to look at your data in many different ways, simply by dragging and dropping fields. Thank you for taking the time to watch our overview on the pivot grid capability included in Insights into Data.